or in an opera. And then the third act is where it's all resolved. So film music historically by the arts community, the higher arts community, has been just eviscerated. There's wonderful articles in the 30s by Stravinsky and Britten and many other composers about how horrible film music is. It's just garbage, and they're vitriolic about it. It's almost comical if you read it now. And many of the pioneers, my father included, kind of had a chip on their shoulder because it wasn't Mahler and Beethoven and all this other stuff that these super conservative institutions thought was what high art was. But my contention now, especially conducting these movies where they are presented in real time in their original context for what it is. So Stravinsky and Britten, or anyone that criticizes it, generally hasn't even listened to it from beginning to end to evaluate what the hell is film music doing? Why is it even there? I mean, nobody even knew, I don't mean to go on, but I just think, and then we can do other stuff. But in 1930, when it started, that's when sound started. There was no sound in movies till 1928 in the jazz singer, but really till 1930. And really 1931, 32 with this primitive technology. Nobody knew what to do. Do you have music go all the way like a silent film? Or do you have it just play an overture and like incidental music to a play? Does the music comment? Or is it just diegetic? Do you guys know what the term, you know what the term diegetic means? Basically source music. Music that's motivated by something visual on screen or that's part of the story. It's not versus commentative music. Now when we think of a film score, the music to a large degree is commenting on the story, the narrative, in its own way, in its own abstract, non-verbal, non-textural way. And it's this skill that they developed throughout the 30s. My father, Franz Waxman, Max Steiner, what you call the 6 or 7 original kind of pioneers, the ones whose name and photo are on a U.S. postage stamp. There's a set of stamps with these 6 guys on it. They figured it out. So 1930s, movies like Street Scene and Barbary Coast, if you've ever seen a 30s movie, they're just bizarre. They're pre-code movies. They're not, And then 9 years later, you have Gone with the Wind, you have Wuthering Heights, you have Wizard of Oz, you have a completely mature film music a procedure of ways to do comedies, ways to do musicals, ways to do dramas. So in 9 years, they kind of figured it out, which went till about 1959 and 1960, and then it changed, and then it changed, and then it changed. Film music, like anything else in history, keeps getting disrupted, either by technology or by a great artist that disrupts it. So I find the similarity of concert music and film music much more profound. Of course, it's hardly ever been studied. It's being studied now more. I mean, there never used to be film classes 20, 30 years ago. Like, I'm sure the depth that you're going into now and the reverence that you hold for these films this has not been the way it's always been, because it's a commercial art form. It's very hard for those kinds of people to get their head around, that it makes a lot of money, but it's high art. How do you, how does that work? Yeah. Anyway, that's my little spiel about that. And I came more and more to this as I had to study these scores. There's stuff in E.T., the movie E.T., assuming you've all seen, that is so simple on the surface, and it's so brilliant in what it brings to the film. Now, in Matilda, I have stuff I can show you, a couple of scenes without music and then with music, because you never get to see it without music. Anyway, sorry.
We can start with that. For the next question.
I won't.
That's actually that's actually a great answer, and I would have a follow-up, but I'm not going to take up time for that. Actually, the next question relates to Matilda, and I want to know, like, if you, when you were writing about music, and you started right at the beginning, you met Danny DeVito, And so
Yeah.
I was wondering if somehow the way you write for him, for his movies, is different, or if it allowed you sort of a more freedom in the sense that all these films are very, including the one we're going to watch tonight, like strong contrast between like they're comedies, the majority of them. They have this dark, dramatic, tragic elements, little pathos, almost like Chaplin. So I was wondering if this helped you, or actually was some sort of a stumbling block.
Well, DeVito, now he doesn't direct much anymore, but he's Italian. He loves opera. He has a very unusual point of view, the way he uses the camera. He does a lot of upshots, and Matilda is, of course, about a child who has magical powers, and she is, she's kind of like a knight. I don't know if you know the story or have read the book, but she discovers she has powers, and she lives with this horrible family, and she gets put in this school with this horrible principal who's...
Don't spoil it.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, but all that, like, it affected how you can write. You can do, with somebody that has a sensibility like that, you can do much more with your music. They're not scared. The movie can handle a lot more commentary or content than a lot of movies, you know. Especially, that movie's 96, I think, 1996. I mean, yeah. So it was like different planet movies then than it is now. So a lot of the music you would never hear in a movie now because it would be too much. But
do you want to give us? We're going to show us some examples, or
yeah. Do you want to do that now, or
sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. Okay. First of all, there are all these. Let's see. These lines. This is a conductor video. I don't know why it's not. It's like.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, but I think it's crashed. I think QuickTime crashed.
It doesn't play?
No.
Trying to recreate it and open it
Yeah.
again.
Don't save. Yeah, this is okay. So where is this? It is conducting Tilda live conductor video. Sorry, I didn't mean to lab on. Okay, so. Okay, and then this. Okay, so I'll turn the music off. So, guys, I'll play you. All these lines are called streamers, or the way that you synchronize conducting when you're recording something. And this I've done as a live movie with an orchestra live on stage. So there's all that stuff that's on is to help me synchronize.
Do you want to tell me that the line passes?
Yeah, it go here. Well, we'll watch one for a second. So now that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the music starts now. 1, 2, 3, bar 3. That's how you synchronize it. When it gets to the right, that's your sync point. Did I turn the narration off? No, it's there.
As you can see,
Everyone is born, but not everyone is born the same. Some will grow to be butchers or bakers or candlestick makers. Some will only be really good at making Jell-O salad. One way or another, though, every human being is unique, for better or for worse.
And that red, that's the
Most parents
that's the end of the cue. So that's what I would look at, right? And I would say, like, what am I going to do? You know, what am I supposed to do here? So as I was saying, Matilda is a genius child. She learns she has magical powers, as you'll see the movie. But she's also very, very brave. She's like Cervantes. She's like a Don Quixote. She's like a knight errant to this teacher, the only adult that she meets that's the kindest teacher in the world, has a Dickens name. Her name is Miss Honey. You know, and her bad teacher's a Trunchbull. Yeah, they're Dickens names. So what I wanted to get in this, I want to get her off-kilter world, her innocence, and her kind of magic loveliness. So sort of three things I want to do. So let's see if I was somewhat successful in that. Okay, here we go. TriStar, which is
Everyone is born, but not everyone is born the same. Some will grow to be butchers or bakers or candlestick makers. Some will only be really good at making Jell-O salad. One way or another, though, every human being is unique, for better or for worse.
So listen, let's just listen again, just bear with me. Listen to the little pizzicatos, the little rhythm thing that's off kilter. So that's to try to describe that her world is like, I'm going to give you an example of what you might think about when you're writing something like this. Be it successful, be it not successful, you're still trying to do something. So listen to those little pizzicatos. So this is just setting up like little magical, little Matilda. And here we go. See, it's off beats.
Everyone is born, but not everyone is born the same. Some will grow to be butchers or bakers or candlestick makers. Some will only be really good at making Jell-O salad. One way or another, though, every human being is unique, for better or for worse.
See, so there's that, which you don't really notice all that much to begin with. Then watch, there's this other weird thing about film music melodies, that there are so many of them that have the animating interval. The interval is the distance between one note to the other. You know, there's 12 notes in a scale. So you go from one note to another note. That's how you do music. You don't just play the same note over and over again. So when you go from one note to another note, it's an interval. It's a mathematical thing. It doesn't matter what it is. But there's one interval that historically, well, there's two intervals. There's one historically that is the most narratively expressive, and there's one that is the darkest. So the one that is the most narratively expressive is what we call the octave. So when you think of somewhere over the rainbow, that first thing, somewhere, that's an octave. So, and an octave is a very, very expressive interval. And it's used over and over and over and over in film music, I believe, because in film music, you have to push out through sound, and you want to reference, there's a lot of referencing so that people are comfortable with what you're doing. And that interval just says expressive. Not just the sound of it and the way your body feels with it, the actual story part of our brains subconsciously, because of us growing up and our, humming lullabies and whatever, is an expressive interval. So this has a lot of octave intervals in it. So I'm going to play one more part of it for you, and then I'll just play one other thing. Let's see. watch when this high, it goes da 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 dum, dee da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da dum, da dum. That's sort of an octave. Da 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 dum, da 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 da, and then it ends da da dum. So when the octave thing comes in, also way high above it, you'll hear violins play da 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 da, which is the same thing as da dum da. It's just slowed down. It's a compositional procedure. You have 50 seconds to make a statement. So you learn these things as you study, and then you find your voice, and you try to utilize it, and no one really notices it, because film music needs to be simple. It's not ostentatious. It's part of a collaboration with a medium. Really, by the time you're doing it, you're collaborating with a movie, not just people, but a movie, which is another bizarro thing. So here, I'm just going to play from here, and I'll show you where the high thing comes in.
Everyone is
Here
born,
it comes now.
but not everyone is born the same. Some will grow to be butchers or bakers or candlestick makers. Some will only be really good at making Jell-O salad. One way or another, though, every human being is unique, for better or for worse.
So it gives Matilda a little bit of complexity, maybe. I'm not sure what the word is. All of this it just seems like the right thing to do when you're composing it. But in looking back and deconstructing it, which is what you're doing with films, I'm assuming much of the time, that's what you do. That's like what John Williams is just brilliant at, and Hans Zimmer. All these people, the scores that you like, there's stuff that you hear that you really like, but they're doing all this other stuff to help tell a collaborative story in a medium that will not collaborate with you. You have to collaborate with it. And a good director and good artists will know that. And as the post-production process winds down, as your film gets cut and edited, I don't know, some of you have made films, right? It takes on a life of its own, yeah. I think. So if you want to play one more thing, I'll play this thing. There's this thing where she goes to a library. Let's see where it is. I think this
In this world, she'd have
Okay, so I'm going to play this without music, then I'm going to play it with music.
front of you. There's nothing you can get from a book that you can't get from a television faster.
Get out of the way!
Matilda already knew that she was somewhat different from her family. She saw that whatever she needed in this world, she'd have to get herself.
Bye.
Ciao! There's fish fingers in the microwave.
The next morning, after her parents left, Matilda set off in search of a book.
The green ones are generally on edits.
Where are the children's books, please?
In that room right over there. Would you like me to pick you out one with lots of pictures in it?
No, thank you. I'm sure I can manage.
From then on, every day as soon as her mother went to bingo, Matilda walked the 10 blocks to the library and devoured one book after another. When she finished all the children's books, she started wandering around in search of something else. Mrs. Phelps, who had been watching her with fascination for the past few weeks, offered Matilda some valuable library information.
You know, you could have your very own library card, and then you could take books home. And you wouldn't have to walk here every day. You could take as many as you like.
That would be wonderful.
So Matilda's strong young mind continued to grow, nurtured by the voices of all those authors who had sent their books out into the world, like ships onto the sea. These books gave Matilda a hopeful and comforting message. You are not alone.
So that's how we meet our Matilda about who the story's about. This is the age of that the story really begins. So this goes from her being very young. This is a long extended sequence where we get into the mature, well, not the mature, but the, Matilda. So here, we'll just play it with the music.
That you can't get from a television faster.
Get out of the way!
Matilda already knew that she was somewhat different from her family. She saw that whatever she needed in this world, she'd have to get herself.
Bye.
Ciao. There's fish fingers in the microwave.
The next morning, after her parents left, Matilda set off in search of a book.
Where are the children's books, please?
In that room right over there. Would you like me to pick you out one with lots of pictures in it?
No, thank you. I'm sure I can manage.
From then on, every day as soon as her mother went to bingo, Matilda walked the 10 blocks to the library and devoured one book after another. When she finished all the children's books, she started wandering around in search of something else. Mrs. Phelps, who had been watching her with fascination for the past few weeks, offered Matilda some valuable library information.
You know, you could have your very own library card, and then you could take books home. And you wouldn't have to walk here every day. You could take as many as you like.
That would be wonderful.
So Matilda's strong young mind continued to grow, nurtured by the voices of all those authors who had sent their books out into the world, like ships onto the sea. These books gave Matilda a hopeful and comforting message. You are not alone. Any packages come today?
Notice also it has a kind of dancing quality. Those string pizzicatos in the first one are there, the high string thing. is there. It harks back to her, but it's all about her character, that she is off kilter, but she's brave and she's strong and she's elegant. She's lovely. It has a dancey kind of feeling. So if that cue works, a lot of it is due to that kind of stuff. And then it's kind of the end of a part of the first act where we present our character at the age that they're going to be through the rest of the film. Do you want to ask some questions, or do you want me to keep
going, because that's what you're here, so we want to hear from you. The question that I had
Yes,
when I was watching that was
yeah.
like, how much of this, I mean, of course, you write the music before, but with Danny DeVito, how much did you interact? At which point maybe told you, I would like this, or
we were at that point mocking everything up. We were taking digital audio workstations, DAWs, and with samples and mocking everything up. So yeah, he would react. But Danny was kind of old school about it. When I first started, you couldn't really mock up stuff, and so you'd go to a session and the director really wouldn't have heard the music, and you'd have to think on your feet a lot. And then if they really didn't like something, they'd have to book another session, spend more money, and all that. Once this thing started happening, you would mock up, and then you'd go back and forth and do this and that and change the other. But he still liked to play around with a live orchestra. I mean, basically you're mocking up at your home with a sample, with a digital audio workstation. But when you're with an orchestra, you can essentially do the same thing. You can change, if you're skilled and trained, you can change pretty much anything. You can make something darker, lighter, faster, slower, happier, sadder, more triumphant. You can do that stuff just as well as you could do it at a sampler. So we would do a lot of it, at the moment. Some people are better at it and faster at it, but I was really trained with conducting and playing in orchestras all my life, and I played in movies all my life, so I knew how the whole thing works. And so we got into a nice rhythm. I did mock up everything, but a lot of it was done. But most of the time, you obsessively mock it up and you go back and forth.
But doesn't it take a long time if you have a live orchestra to change each part for
It depends how trained you are and how good you are at it. Yes, it takes a long time. But the thing is that certain directors, like John Williams, never mocked up anything in his life. Him and Spielberg, I mean, John Williams is a great pianist, so he can sort of play it, but for God's sake, I mean, there's no way that you can tell what an orchestra is going to sound like until you get there. A mock-up will give you about 60-70% of it, of what it's going to sound like. I mean, depending on the style and the movie. Right. Yeah. So,
want to show what's good?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe one more. Let's see.
While you're looking for it, he's doing this also live. I mentioned before the live movies that he makes, which are essentially live concerts where the film is screened. They remove the sound, the music from the soundtrack. There's the sound effects. They have like dialogues, and so the orchestra needs to play perfectly in sync with the entire film. And he uses exactly, this system of streamers and punches, right?
Streamers and flutters. Open with. Actually, it was invented by Alfred Newman, by my father, in 1935. They used to use a big clock. So you'd have this big sweep hand clock with a second hand. Sometimes if you look in old archive photos, you'll see right by the conductor stand a big clock. And you'd write down the timing in your score, but it's like mental gymnastics. And my father was an excellent conductor. He was a pit conductor in the 20s in New York. And so he wanted to have a pit paradigm. So he'd be standing here, the orchestra is here, and the screen would be, like the orchestra would be here, the conductor would be facing the screen. And so you're like looking up like you're conducting in an opera, in a Broadway pit or an opera, yeah. So that's why he wanted to do that. He was like actually by far the best conductor. Here, I'll play a little of this without music, and then I'll play it with music because it's a little bit longer. I might not play all of this, but turn that off. And okay. So they've snuck in. Well, you'll see in the movie. This is just a peril scene.
Is that Lissy Dog?
You useless used car salesman scum! I want you around here now with another car! Yes, I know what caveat emptor means, you low-life liar! I'm gonna sue you, I'm gonna burn down your showroom, I'm gonna take that no-good jalopy you sold me and shove it up your bazooka! When I finish with you, you're gonna look like roadkill! You what? you...
Well, yeah, you get the idea. Yeah.
Come on. Shouldn't we hide or something?
Yeah. Go to the end of the hall, down the stairs, and out the kitchen door. I'll distract her.
Who's in my house? Come on, fight like a man!
I mean, that's what you, when you start writing, I mean, they'll generally have temp music, but then at some point you turn it off and you just have to write your own music, and that's what it looks like. Now, obviously, they're shooting knowing that they're editing and shooting knowing there's going to be music, but it's still, no one ever gets to see it this way, and it's very hard to deconstruct what music's doing without taking it out and looking at it without the music, which virtually is impossible to do. It's just because of the way we're doing these films, you know, you mute the music and play the music live, so they give us a quick time with everything split out, so I can mute the music. So it's pretty amazing on some of them. I did the first Indiana Jones movie, and you turn music off on it out, and it's just this like bizarre, you know, or like I did E.T., the beginning of E.T., and if you remember, they're like aliens walking around like sniffing stuff, and you turn off the music and it just seems creepy. Like, who are these guys that are there? And you turn the music on and it's like, oh, it's reverential, it's spiritual. They're benign, collecting, you know. It completely changes it without you even knowing, but you can't deconstruct. Sorry. Anyway, all right, let's see what happens here.
Is that Lissy doll?
You useless used car salesman scum! I want you around here now with another car! Yes, I know what caveat emptor means, you low-life liar! I'm gonna sue you, I'm gonna burn down your showroom, I'm gonna take that no-good jalopy you sold me and shove it up your bazooka! When I finish with you, you're gonna look like roadkill! You what? you...
Shouldn't we hide or something?
Yeah. Go to the end of the hall, down the stairs, and out the kitchen door. I'll distract her.
Who's in my house? Come on, fight like a man!
think it's so amazing because I was watching you before and after. I mean, before you guys, without the music, you were really should have seen your faces. I wish I had filmed it. It was like kind of like weirded out. And now there were people smiling or a little kind of satisfied. It's really amazing. You don't notice because you expect the music to be there, so you didn't notice until you removed it.
Well, that's the thing is you can't, to study it, you have to be able to take it away and see what the film is. The other thing about this too, these are tricky. This is a dark comedy, so there's a lot of weird tongue-in-cheek, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to go from dark to not so dark. I wouldn't say it goes to light, but it has to like traverse this thing because of the style of the film, the way it looks. Obviously, I think I was telling Alex, Danny DeVito this was when the first Jurassic Park movie, I think, was out, and he kept thinking of her as a velociraptor. A lot of the sound effects for her are like Jurassic Park kind of, sound effects, and they're very musical in a way. So it all has to be, And the other thing with comedies like this, the music's always a little bit lower because of trying to get the joke and the dialogue and everything. So they're very, very, very tricky to do. So it takes a lot of trial and error to find. And then the last thing I'll say about it, I tell you, there's the interval of the octave. That's the interval. The other interval is what's called an augmented fourth. So it's right in the middle of the 12 scales, and it was the medieval interval in the church of the devil. You could never use an augmented fourth is like Maria. I just met a girl named Maria. That's an augmented fourth. Da-dee. So when you play those pitches together, that was a real no-no. So it has an historical narrative element to it as well. So most of this, when the violins are doing that da-da-da-da-da, they're sawing away, they're all obsessively doing augmented fourths as part of, that's part of the Trunchbull thing. And then you heard a lot of I'm not going to play it again, but there's a lot of high violin stuff that's for Matilda that harks back, that references what was done before. So, did you want to talk about something else? I think that's maybe enough of this. So.
I had a quick question. Just want to tell us what you're working on. I mean, we know that you just signed up to the Steven Spielberg's next film.
To West Side Story.
Yeah, but still, you're also writing the other script.
Well, I'm gonna help. I'm gonna help. I mean, there's no writing.
You're the musical director.
I'm
not going to help.
Musical
the whole thing. So
And I'm doing a Ellen DeGeneres Netflix show called Green Eggs and Ham,
Dr.
which is
Seuss,
animated. Yeah, it's awesome. It comes out around Thanksgiving. It's 13 like 24-minute episodes. It's like crazy, irreverent, wonderful for kids, but also really they reference movies. Like there's one. Well, I won't tell you because it's good. But like they reference a lot of culture. There are a lot of cultural references. There's a lot of gender reference. Very funny, topical things that'll go right over kids' heads. But then it's this cute little story. Yeah. So.
Well, that's great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Sure.
We really appreciate
I'm glad.
it.
Thank you. Sorry, I hope that's okay.
So we'll take a 10-minute break and then we'll start the film.
sound, sort of what it sounds like, and then you go through the process. And they say things like, here it's too dark, can you make it a little lighter? And then here it's not like this, it makes it too scary. Like Matilda's sort of, could be, Matilda's a kid's movie, it's for children in a way, but it can be very scary. So we would constantly go back and forth. Is it too scary? Has it been too scary for too long? And should we do weird stuff like circus, so that it seems kind of surreal in a way? You do stuff like that. And I was telling, well, we were talking that a lot of times when you write music for a movie, you say, does it work? And you put it up against the movie. You do this thing, and they just say, it doesn't work. And then you do something else, and you change it, and you put it up, and they say, doesn't work. And then you put something else, and think, yes, that works. And that's kind of the sum of the conversation. So like, when I was like trying to explain to you what I'm doing, again, for better or for worse, whatever you thought of it, I'm sort of deconstructing what I already did, but the process is just writing stuff, throwing it up against the movie, and seeing if it works. And the director will give you changes, but kind of everyone involved knows if it works or doesn't work. It's a very weird process. It's like saying, why do I love this piece of music so much? Yeah. I don't know. It's like, it's really beautiful, it's really powerful. It really makes me want to move. It really makes my heart sing. But I don't know, So a lot of it is that. And then when we get in a situation like this, we try to understand maybe the reasons for that. So, all the Matilda-ish stuff, her being a knight errant, getting that Lizzie doll for Miss Honey, that's her mission, I don't know. But that the process is this sort of evolving process, is that you give it to them and they give you what's called notes. Yeah. And you have time code numbers, and they say, at this number, can you do such and such? And you just do it, and you give it back, and it goes back and forth. So it's a little more mundane. Or you can just yell it out.
I just got a quick one. What DAW do you typically use?
I use Logic.
Logic?
Logic. Most Americans use Logic. If you're in Europe, you use Cubase on a PC, because Macs were historically so expensive in Europe. But principally, films are sort of Hollywood, US-centric in a way. It didn't used to be Logic. It used to be Vision, Opcode. I mean, there's all this history with DAWs as well. But Logic is the one that most everyone in the US uses. I like Logic because it has a really good notation module. You can work in editing notation rather than obviously you know about this, rather than a piano roll. You can see actually the note, it transcribes the notes, and you can work like, I started working, writing on an orchestra score, so I like that interface. But they're all obnoxious too. I mean, they all screw up, and they're all horrible. We're always looking, when you're writing, you want to, notation's a technology if you think about it, right? What is notation? It's like little dots on 5 staves, and we're all looking for something that's transparent, that doesn't get in the way of your thought process, but it's just not quite there yet. Mac is coming out with a new Mac Pro that might be so powerful that maybe it'll be Nirvana with this, but not yet. It's still kind of a struggle. But that's what I use.
Yeah, if you want to hear it, if you want to hear it.
Okay.
with the editing that's been finalized, or do the editors work with your finalized product?
No one works with your product. You know, filmmaking is trifurcated, like a 3-act play, like a 3-act opera. You have pre-production, shooting, and post-production, right? So we're generally in post-production. So we get to watch over and over the process of how people edit a film. And this was my thing about what I was saying, that filmmaking is a collaborative medium, but eventually it becomes collaborative. It's collaborative with a medium, not with I'm sure they could hear me. So it's not collaborative with people as it gets through post-production. But you're always working with what's not a locked film. All of us know directors will say, oh, the film's locked, or it's like 90% locked. Since music exists in a serial way, you know, sound effects exist at time code numbers, and so it's easy to conform. So if you change an edit and you shorten a scene or lengthen a scene, it's easy to move the sound effects around because they don't last for very long. But music might last for a minute, so you have to conform your music. So we all, at least in the United States, we have a music editor. So there's a person that, okay, they make an edit. This they all know, right? You're a filmmaker. Okay, so they make an edit on the Avid or in Final Cut, whatever they're doing, and then they send a change list to your music editor, and then your music editor translates it into time code numbers, which is what I want to see, and then I translate it into bars and beats and tempo and all that. So like movies are almost never locked, ever. The television shows are, because they're so much faster, tend to be more locked when you do it. But even when it's locked, it doesn't matter, because when they go to the dub, when they go to the mix, they call it a dub mostly, yeah. They'll mess around. They might edit and then they'll cut your music and do that. So it's never really finished until what's called print master. They know what that is?
No, because this is the next problem.
When they finish a movie, they do this thing called print mastering, that's the end. You can't go back unless you unwind this whole thing. So there is a brick wall at the end of it, but none of us ever think that it's over. You know, at some point you stop working and they pay you, and if you're going to work again, they'll pay you to work again. But we never go under the auspices that it's locked, and we have all kinds of ways of easily, technically figuring out how to conform our music to the cut of the film. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
The question I have is how many times has it happened that the film maybe is, only make some judgment because of the music? Probably never.
Almost never, though there are directors that really love music and do it. But you know what? Okay, I played on E.T. I played the violin. I was a violinist on E.T. And the last scene of E.T., that whole last section of it, it was at MGM in Los Angeles at the stage where Wizard of Oz. So it's a nice big beautiful stage, and John Williams was conducting it, and he'd make a tape, but it would be a little out of sync, and then he'd make another take, and it would be in sync, but he didn't like the take. This is a famous story, and then blah blah blah. He did like 8 takes of this 8-minute cue, just took hours and hours. And I think finally what happened is that Spielberg did cut the film, because it was so important at the end of the movie that he opened it up a tiny bit. And he was out of sync just a little bit, but he took the best performance. But that's the only. I'm sure there are other examples of that, but mainly your job is to fit to the movie. It's not their job to edit the movie, to your music.
What is your most favorite thing that you've composed, or a movie-wise or anything? And why?
Yeah, I
the director, who most of the time is not an expert in music, dictating what they want to the composer who is an expert in music, and it can cause kind of a clash. But from what I've learned, often you'll find some very iconic film musical pieces from film, are very similar to other musical works, is because the director will put in reference tracks or filler tracks, which is kind of their vision, and they want it to be so close to that often the composer will just straight up almost copy that other musical piece. Not in a bad way, but I know even John Williams has done a lot too. How often has that happened to you?
Well, everything, the way a movie's made, right, they do pre-production, then they have to, the guy writes the script, then they have to cast it, so that changes it. Then they have to do location scouting, it changes it. You know, it's extremely chaotic making films. Then they start shooting, and then they do dailies. It's a little different now, but historically they would do dailies. And they shoot enough scenes and they cut together enough shots, and they put together a scene, and the editor's there on the set. And as soon as they have a scene, they'll put music on it. They know almost nobody these days, and I'd say historically, edits without using what's called temp music, you know. So it's just a fact, it's a fact of life. When I said before, when you weren't mocking things up on a DAW, you could do things that would surprise them, that would be really different than the temp score, and then it would either be yay or no. It would either be like I said, oh, I don't know, or it would, yeah, great, you know, it works. But it's just a fact of life, and it does. But remember, film music has to be referential. It can't be distracting. It can't be so original and groundbreaking unless it's a certain kind of thing, which is very unusual. It's not about the music, the movie. It's about so old-fashioned. But the way the strings are vibrating, and the way the phrases are done, and the whole ambiance of playing, I guess if you didn't do that, you were just fired immediately. He's kind of a jerk in a way, but everyone that was there wanted to be there, was paid extremely well, had months off. It was a fantastic job. And I think for 20 years, that ensemble is one of the greatest ensembles that was on earth, including the Berlin Philharmonic, Concertgebouw, whatever. So I guess I would say that as I get older, that is the most inspirational, that somebody could actually manage that and pull that off. And maybe his greatest gift was being a manager, doling out, picking the orchestra, settling fights. He was completely in charge of Fox, except for Daryl Zanuck, who was opening. So,
I was wondering if you were mentioning the one that you seen Mary Millionaire?
yeah, that's the Fox Orchestra. They're sideline.
And that's your dad.
Yeah, and that's the Fox stage. I mean, they're not really playing. They recorded it, and then that's 1954. That's CinemaScope of Anamorphic, right? And it's their answer to the television. Yeah, television kind of usurping. Yeah, look, there's 2 women flute players, and a woman harp player, and 1 woman violinist, and that's it. Yeah.
I also wanted to say congratulations on West Side Story.
Oh. Okay, I'll pass through it.
Hi, first of all, thanks for being here.
Sure.
Before the film, you mentioned that you kind of take a look at what you're doing, like a play, like first act, second act, third act. And then I also noticed that you talked about looking at characters. And when I was looking at the film and listening to your music, it sounds like you come up with a signature for each of the characters. And then you do variations on that. And then at the end, it sounded like you did like a summary to kind of take us back through all the different characters in the way you put your music together. So in a sense, you have to read and buy into the script just like the person who's directing it and come up with your own ideas for that. So as a musician and putting something like that together, I was curious to know, is this a work for hire? Do you maintain a copyright to it? So you do it, they pay you, and then it's theirs.
Yeah, it's the studio owns. It's a very complicated, weird formula that I didn't really understand at the beginning. They own everything, but in a way, it's good because you split this, what's called performance royalty. So we all belong to either BMI or ASCAP in the United States. If you're in France, you belong to other. Each country has its own performing rights organization, which basically they lobby for intellectual property rights. So what happens when you write for a film in America is it's only 100%. There can only be 100% like from the producers. You sell 5,000%. There can only be 100%. So there's 100% writer share and 100% publishing share. Really, it's just 100%. So of the money that comes in for publishing, you as the writer keep very lucrative job to be a film composer without getting paid a lot of money up front for your stuff, even though of course you try to get as much money as you can for everything you do. But what happens is you get this, the more films you do, you get this kind of annuity from EMI or ASCAP, or if you live in Europe, they're the other performing rights organization. And it sort of exponentially grows. So you can be a relatively modestly well, doing well film composer and make a very good living without, without having to be super famous and touring and, be like that. It's a very weird thing. It is something that I did understand from my family because it's not very well known, but that's the way you make money in music is to own stuff. Well, anything is to own stuff. So, but you don't own very much stuff in film, but you do own that 50% of the performance royalties, meaning every time the film is shown somewhere publicly, there's money that goes,
And you get a check.
You get a check or they deposit your account. But it might be like 180 pages of like 5 cents, 2 cents, 3 cents, then $100, then maybe a couple $1,000, then 3 cents, 2 cents, like pages of 2 cents. But it's kind of the way capitalism works. I mean, for better or for worse. At least you get that. I mean, if you're like a performer, like a pop performer, you don't write your stuff, you don't get it. You can't make money except by touring now. You can't sell any. It's a different thing. Anyway, I think that's a long-winded way of answering your question, but no, you don't own anything. They own everything.
Just a quick follow-up to that. When you had to license something, for example, I'm sure what was the Alpha piece, the Trucker Salute, right?
Yeah, but they license it. So the studio negotiates the price. And yeah, I do get mechanicals, but I get that because it's written in the contract of each movie. It's not like the BMI ASCAP thing, which is just sort of overall. Right. That your lawyer negotiates a certain amount of money for mechanicals or sync license, but it's only a percentage of it, and then the studio owns, they have these huge publishing departments that are these business, studios have tons of lawyers and business affairs people that have nothing to do with anything but licensing music and licensing, and lawyers that are looking to see if there's any, lawsuits with music. You have music departments of 30, 40, 50 people. They're not doing artistic stuff, they're doing business stuff, because it's a big, it throws off a lot of money, and a lot of people sue, and it's a whole thing. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Mr. Newman. Just like, I don't know really.
We can't see where.
Right here. Way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of off base from like movies per se, but from a musician standpoint, what's your opinion on people who can just like, I guess virtuosos, and for me it's like Jimi Hendrix, guys who can't really like read music but like feel it?
Jimi Hendrix is a genius. There's nothing about composing that has anything to do with being trained or reading music. If you compose, you just notice. It's just, I mean, I'm super trained. I just sucked at composing for a while. It has nothing to do with it. However, I didn't want my kids to grow up being untrained because it's very hard to be untrained because you can, in a job like maybe I would consider a lot of what he did artistic, but he wouldn't ever think of himself that way. So Jimi Hendrix wouldn't give a crap about doing anything but what he's doing. It's kind of that thing. It's like the Beatles. I mean, to me, the Beatles are like Bach, J.S. Bach, you know, the Baroque composer. At the end of his life, no one knew who the F he was, but at the end of his life, he wrote like 3 or 4 pieces that used every bit of information musically that he knew all over the world. He was a universalist. He jammed everything into a mass, into these pieces, into the art of the few pieces. To me, the Beatles jammed everything in the world that they knew. Classical music, ethno music, beer hall music, vaudeville, Broadway, everything. And I know they had, what's his face to help them?
George Martin.
Yeah, George Martin and EMI, you know, and it was, they were like hugely rich and famous and everything, but still, I did with my kid, because we had to drive a long way in Los Angeles. We would drive an hour a day, and we listened to every Beatles album chronologically. And I wasn't like a big Beatles fan in the beginning, but my God, they were universalists. It was nothing, and it all sounded like the Beatles. Everything with Bach sounds like Bach. It doesn't, you know, sound. So the Beatles are completely untrained, you know. But then I asked myself, you know, like, is it better to be untrained, or does being trained wreck your artistic integrity? I don't know. It's like being a comedian. Do you have to be an asshole to be a comedian? You know, like they all say. A lot of them say they you know, is that where you get your energy? I don't know. I just know it would be very scary to be a musician and not to be trained, unless you're just super famous and, you know, like that in that era. So I guess that would be my way of answering that. I don't think it has anything to do with the actual procedure and act of composing. And especially now, there's a lot of people writing film music that don't read or write a note of music. They code. But I wouldn't want to live that way. But that's me. So I keep an open mind, I think, about it. Sort of. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely, thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Okay. First, I'd like to say it's awesome to have you here as a possible music composition minor. So really cool to have you here. My question for you is, you really bring up a lot that, especially that you began as a violinist and as a musician for the most part. Do you still see yourself as mostly a musician, or do you see yourself more as a composer, or and was there like a point that you sort of realized that?
I do. I came to composing really late, frankly, like my father did. My father, in the 20s, my father was born in 1900, and in the 20s was working as a conductor in Broadway, you know, in Gershwin, I mean, it must have been unbelievable. But he, you know, he did some arranging and stuff, but he wasn't a composer. He had to learn how to compose. So I don't think he ever really, I mean, he learned how to do it, but I don't think he really ever thought of himself as a quote-unquote composer. So for me, I feel like I figured out the violin at some point, though I was no, you know, I wasn't a concert artist, but I was I could play in a professional. And the conducting, I've sort of figured out, it's a little more complicated, but I feel like I've sort of figured out what that is. I have this whole bizarre, hours to explain concept of conducting, which is like the most dilettante art there is, and I believe it should be a scientific art, be that as it may. But composing is just a completely, it's the high part of music. And if I was to be honest, I just haven't really figured it out. So I really, and I really feel like my father, this thing that I said about performance being important, I think performance for his music is almost as important as the music itself, if that makes sense. It's you know, I think he viewed the
you had some go-to piece of theory, or if there's a brainstorming tool you use, or what you do to get inspired to write the melody.
Well, quite frankly now, melody is not really much of an issue in television and film right now. So I'd have to go back. I don't, some people are better at writing melodies than others. My sense of melody always tended to get me in trouble. I would always go to some weirder place. I don't mean that in some like cool thing. It just was, I would take a turn in a melody and it would be very hard for me to figure out. But you know, like, if you've ever heard John Williams talk about this, about melody, it's really interesting. So he said, like, the melody for Raiders, it goes dun 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 dun. He said it took him weeks to figure out. And he had this melody, dun 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 dun, and then he had the dun 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 dun. That was another melody. So he played Spielberg, dun 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 dun. He said sort of like that, and then he played dun 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 dun. He said, well, I like that one too, you know. And then Spielberg said, why don't you just put them together? You know, you can do the melody. I don't know that illuminates anything. It's just, it's really hard to write a melody. Sometimes it comes really easy and sometimes it doesn't. And now it doesn't really matter because nobody wants a melody now. It's like, I don't know if you notice, if you walk, well, you would only notice, if you're a musician, you would notice that there's very little melody now in what's going on in film and television. But again, it's like throwing stuff at the wall. You know, either it works or it doesn't work, and sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes it's not. I did this film called Serenity that Joss Whedon directed. It was based on Firefly, that television show, and I think I wrote 18 melodies, main titles for it before we hit on something. And then this one, Matilda, I wrote instantly. And Danny loved it. You know, again, they said, yes, it's everything is like, you know, hyperbolic in Hollywood. It's either, you know, I don't like it, or if they like it, they scream that they like it. So I don't have any insight into that. But I'm sure others do. I think John Williams is a really interesting one to look at if you're interested in that and reading about that. If you look at some Google John Williams melodies, you'll see a really interesting take. Also, like in Raiders, where the melody doesn't really happen till the end of the movie. He gives you little pieces of it, and then it's sort of his aesthetic, which no one would notice because he's always in concert playing the whole thing, you know. What he's playing in Raiders is the end title of Raiders, but the melody in Raiders hardly is there at all until the end of the movie. So, yeah. All right.
All right.
they heard symphonic music. And they come. And they come to a hall, and it's not intimidating, and it's fun. It's everything that these organizations are trying to do. They're trying to get audiences, they're trying to get different audiences. And it's all orchestral music. It's all based on canonical orchestral music, especially that era, the Star Wars era, and even Michael's, the Star Trek movies, a little different, but the same thing. And and then you're seeing a movie with a bunch of people. Spielberg just won an award and gave a speech, you can Google it, about the difference of seeing a movie with an audience versus watching it at home. It's just, when I